A photo of a torn piece of paper. No name, no date, just a deformed finger lying silently in front of a camera lens. This photo belongs to a man who was once beaten half to death at the Zhangmutou Detention Center. He held it all in for 20 years before finally deciding to come forward today. He said, "I stayed silent all this time because I thought everyone already knew. I thought everyone knew, but the truth is, they didn't. The public was never allowed to know in the first place." Our report on Zhangmutou in the last episode triggered a massive wave of comments. In the comments section, someone wrote, "Thank you for speaking up about this." Another commented, "Back then, hundreds of millions of farmers migrated to Guangdong, and in almost every single village, there was someone who left and never came back." Another netizen shared, "In '94, I worked as a construction worker in Zhangmutou. I lived in fear every single day, terrified of being picked up by them." Someone even said, "I've been searching for this topic for years. Finally, someone has the guts to talk about it." Yet, just as the Zhangmutou topic went viral and trended on mainland Chinese social media for a mere few hours, the authorities moved in fast. Posts, videos, and comments were wiped completely clean, one by one. This made me realize that our story is far from over. Today, we are going to dig even deeper. What else did the survivors reveal? What actually happened in there? And how many unsolved, mysterious cases did that system leave behind? By the way, for those of you wanting to grab some official Tracers merch, everything is live right now. We've got hoodies, tank tops, mugs, tumblers, phone cases, and a whole lot more. You can check it out by clicking the link below. It's fully integrated right here into the video. Hi, Tracers. How are you doing? Today, we are diving back into a dark, forgotten history that was completely wiped from the internet in just a few hours. A chilling reality that most people are too terrified to even talk about, because you never know how deep this hole goes. Recently, a content creator in mainland China uploaded a video sharing his personal memoir. He recalled that back then, he and about 40 to 50 fellow migrants from Hunan were crammed together into a single room at the Zhangmutou Detention Center. The room was windowless and suffocating. The food they were given was spoiled, and for water, they were forced to scoop it straight from the toilet. There were no family visits, no lawyers, and not a single soul to tell them when they would be released. The only way to call for help, he said, was through a pager or by begging the guards to let them borrow a landline. Fortunately, his older sister heard the news and rushed over with cash to bail him out. As he was walking away, many of his hometown friends secretly slipped scraps of paper into his hand, begging him to help contact their families once he was free, so they could be bailed out too. Because the people left behind knew all too well that if they waited too long, they might be shipped away. Shipped where? No one knew for sure. Another survivor shared a story about a night he will never forget for the rest of his life. That night, he and his friend were enjoying a movie at a theater. Suddenly, the local security guards stormed in and started raiding everyone for residence permits. He held his breath, paralyzed with fear. Luckily for him, by the time it was his turn, the truck used to haul people away was already packed to the brim. So, they let him go. It was only later that he realized one thing. Those security guards didn't care whether you actually had a residence permit or not. Their only goal was to fill up 2 trucks. Once those 2 trucks were full, the rest of the crowd, regardless of whether they had a permit, were allowed to leave. But there's another version of this reality that is far more brutal. Another survivor recounted a time when his friend actually pulled out his residence permit to show the guards. Before his friend could even finish speaking, a guard snatched the permit, ripped it to shreds, and threw it on the ground. Staring at him coldly, the guard said, "Now, do you still have a permit? You don't, right? Get on the truck." This wasn't just a random case or a few bad apples. This was systemic cruelty. Back then, the detention and deportation system no longer operated under the law. It had morphed into a game of meeting arrest quotas, a dirty business that traded human lives for profit. According to a leak from a mainland Chinese content creator from 1992 to 2003, the Baoshan Detention and Deportation Center in Zhangmutou, Dongguan, forcibly held more than 830,000 people. That number, 830,000, is equivalent to the entire population of a city. And out of those 830,000 people, at least thousands died miserable deaths or vanished without a trace. Seasoned local netizens even claim the real numbers are far higher. The detention center operated completely in the dark. The people who entered had no official records whatsoever. Deaths didn't need to be reported, and missing persons were never investigated. Some netizens mentioned that there are dark secrets buried beneath a dam in Zhangmutou. Others added that near Zhangmutou there used to be a prison and an execution ground. Those dark abysses hold horrors that most people wouldn't even dare to imagine. I am not spreading rumors. I am simply echoing the testimonies left behind by the people who actually survived that brutal system, and they left these comments at the risk of their own safety. During the few brief hours when this news went viral on mainland Chinese social media, netizens flooded it with an outpouring of raw emotion. We've selected a few of them. One person wrote, "The old Zhangmutou was no different from today's cyber fraud compounds." Another commented, "The Auschwitz concentration camp, Zhangmutou in Dongguan, China's Unit 731." Then, there was one sentence that made me stop and read it twice. "Millions of migrants went to Guangdong to seek their fortunes, and in almost every single village, there was someone who left and never came back." One survivor even stated bluntly, "The Nanjing massacre is just history I heard about, but Zhangmutou was a real hell that I actually lived through." Another netizen chimed in, "This was the pioneer and the ancestor of the atrocities we see in northern Myanmar today." These words are not just the angry rants of keyboard warriors or angsty teens. This is a historical comparison written by a generation using their own flesh and blood. However, the window of time they were allowed to speak lasted only a few hours before everything was once again silenced into oblivion. Many in the younger generation might not know that the end of this brutal detention and deportation system began with a single name: Sun Zhigang. In 2003, he was just 1 year out of college. He was young, highly educated, and had a bright future ahead of him. Sun Zhigang traveled alone to Guangzhou for work, but simply because he didn't have his residence permit on him. He was immediately picked up on charges of being a person of three nothings, an unidentified vagrant with no legal ID, no fixed residence, and no employment, and was detained for 3 days. In just 3 days of detention, he was beaten so brutally by the facility guards that he died from his injuries. This tragic case was later exposed by a journalist, triggering an unprecedented wave of public outrage everywhere. Cornered by the massive public backlash, the authorities were finally forced to abolish the detention and deportation system that had been running for years. The tragic death of one young man, all to end a system built on sheer brutality. But what about those who simply vanished into thin air in Zhangmutou? What about the nameless souls buried forever in the shadows of thousands of similar detention centers across the country? They left this world without a name, without a headstone, and without even a single official record of death from the state. The system may have been abolished, but the blood debt and the sins of the past were never brought to justice. Many people wonder how a detention center could be so cruel and sadistic. To understand it, we have to look at how the logic of the system worked. These detention centers weren't social institutions or welfare agencies. They were a business. Local governments, security guards, and detention facility staff all formed a tightly knit mafia network just to rake in profits. And in this business, human arrests had quotas. The higher the arrest targets, the larger the budget funding they received. Inside these detention centers, every single person locked up was a cash cow. If their families wanted them out, they had to pay extortionate ransoms. For those who had no one to bail them out, they would be locked up for long periods and subjected to forced labor. Meanwhile, for female workers, according to leaks from several content creators, the suffering they faced wasn't just beatings and torture. They were also subjected to rape, human trafficking, and being forced into prostitution rings. And because this entire system operated in total darkness, without oversight, without audits, and without any outside inspection, any form of crime and brutality could just vanish and be silenced forever within that darkness. In fact, a number of netizens believe and question whether some of the deaths back then actually involved deep conspiracies and dark, intricate scandals. Of course, we cannot verify every single one of these claims. However, the sheer existence of these voices proves that this chapter of history still holds too many dark corners hidden from the world. We often say that history is a mirror, but sometimes history is not a mirror, it's a window. And when you look through it, what you see on the other side turns out to be today's reality. One netizen even commented that Zhangmutou was the pioneer and the ancestor of the cyber fraud compounds in northern Myanmar today. This comparison is heartbreaking, but it doesn't mean it's far-fetched. The captivity, the exploitation, the coercion, the lives lost without a trace, and the complete lack of access to call for help, this entire barbaric logic never truly disappeared. They just changed the name of the place. The system might have been abolished, but the soil where that system thrived is still there. When a system is allowed to operate without any oversight, when human beings can easily be branded as people of three nothings and then simply eliminated, and when their ledgers and secret records are forever hidden from the public, this is no longer a localized issue. This is a flaw in the entire structure. To close our topic for today, I want to quote the words left behind by a netizen. They wrote, "Millions of migrants went to Guangdong to seek their fortunes, and in almost every single village, there was someone who left and never came back." This is not just an empty slogan. This is the raw, living pain felt by hundreds of thousands of families decades ago, those who stepped into those detention centers and never returned. Most of them were just ordinary young men from rural villages. They migrated and worked in Guangdong with one simple dream: to make a little money to send back home, so their parents wouldn't have to toil so hard anymore. They might not have had residence permits, but they had names. The authorities want to block and forcibly erase this chapter of history while the age of the remaining survivors grows older year by year. If we do not record and preserve this memory now, then this dark history will be completely swallowed by time. The authorities want to block and forcibly erase this chapter of history while the age of the remaining survivors grows older year by year. If we do not record and preserve this memory now, then this dark history will be completely swallowed by time. Thank you to every survivor and truth teller who had the courage to leave their testimonies in the comment section. Your voice and your bravery will never be in vain. This is why we can't let these stories die. If you believe this work matters, please share this video and keep supporting us here on Patreon so we can keep digging out the truths they want buried. Thank you for standing with me. If you're still watching this, maybe you're looking for the same thing I am.